Hello everyone. Sorry I haven't made a video in a long time. I've just been busy with a few things. Anyway, I've been wanting to make a video about divination for a while. Or how divination works. So, divination is basically the practice of forecasting the future through analysis of chance. Things which are seemingly up to chance or to fate. There are many examples of this, like, for example, rolling the dice. This comes from the Roman tradition, where the game of dice was used to tell the future. Sort of like a magic 8-ball, except you come up with the answer yourself after rolling the dice, and the dice tells you, the dice tells you what the future will be. If it's an 8, it'll be this. If it's a 7, whatever. Another example from Rome is the analysis, as well as from Celtic people, is the analysis of the blood of animals. They would kill animals. The Romans would kill chickens, and then look at the blood of the chickens. And according to some sources, the Celts would kill people and look at the blood of the sacrifice victim in order to tell the future. And there are many more examples of this, say from modern times. Take, for example, tarot cards, which a lot of people consider to be a bunch of hocus pocus. And people look at tarot cards and think they can tell the future, or learn some things about themselves from looking at the tarot cards. And generally, lots of people think divination is just superstition, because almost anything can be divination. And tarot cards, for example, were invented in medieval times. Some people try to tie them with the Kabbalah and like with ancient symbolism. Some of the images obviously very ancient and stuff, but they're mostly invented. And some people think divination is just superstition. But the one qual I would have with all of it, which I've had for a long time, which is why I wanted to look into this, is why would people still believe in it for thousands and thousands of years if it didn't work? If the Druids weren't able to tell the future, why would people keep listening to them? When they want to know the future, why would they ask the Druid? The Druid is just, if it's up to chance, if he's just like completely guessing, then half the time or a large amount of the time he's going to be wrong just as much as he's going to be right. People would lose faith in it. So why would they keep trusting the Druid, and why would they keep trusting divination? And so I've come to realize that there's actually a practical way in which divination works. Take, for example, how the Chinese alphabet came into being. People would gather around and look at burning cattle bones. They would analyze the burning bones and see the charred marks on the bones, how the bones cracked. And each crack would form some sort of shape. And they wanted to divine the future. Let's take, for example, a very simple one. Is it going to rain tomorrow? And you burn the bone, and you look at how it cracks, and it cracks a certain way, like rain droplets or a cloud or something like that. And you think, the bone is telling us it's going to rain tomorrow. Does everyone else agree? Does everyone else think that's what the bones are telling us? And the people say yes, and tomorrow it rains. And then the next day, they want to see, the day after, is it going to rain? So they get the bone, they burn the bone, they see the same shape as yesterday, and they say, well, yes, it's going to rain tomorrow. And it rains tomorrow. Now, how does this work? Is it magic? Is it whatever? Personally, I believe it's, I guess you could call it magic, because it's like a form of sorcery. But not in the way you'd think. You see, in a society like this, there's a sort of a subconscious democracy that exists when people gather around to analyze a certain thing. Each person subconsciously has some sort of understanding about if it's going to rain tomorrow or not, the same way that animals do. And when they gather around looking at the burning bone, the ones who think it's going to rain are going to look at the shape in the bone and think that shape means rain, while others think it might mean, something else, but they'll generally be in the minority. And the thing is, in order for the divination practice to be verified, all that needs to happen, it doesn't need to work 100% of the time. It just needs to work more than 50% of the time. As long as the majority of the time it works, it's still proven to be better than just completely guessing, And over time, that's how the Chinese alphabet was created. Each symbol represents a different concept. For example, a symbol is very, wide, or it represents, greatness, or, breadth, or width, or something like that. And when people analysed the shapes in the burning bone originally, they would generally see the shapes that they wanted to see. Of course, sometimes they'd see the wrong ones because the system trips itself up eventually. But generally, they would. It's like a way of bringing some subconscious knowledge that everyone in the group had between them to the fore. And the village elder, or the sorcerer, the druid, would spend his entire life analysing the same situation again and again. And here's the thing, is he really analysing the superficial, on the surface, sort of supercutaneous symbolism? Is he analysing the exoteric? Or is he, at the same time, which I believe he is, also looking past that? And in a way, he's analysing his own subconscious beliefs, the subconscious beliefs and attitudes of the entire tribe. Because he's seen the emotional and logical, or not illogical, but rational reactions that everyone has to the changing symbols and the changing times. In times of great stress or need, people would react differently to the symbols as they would in other times. And in a way, the overall attitude or feeling of the tribe is brought to the fore through the divination ritual. Now, the reason why it's magic, like all forms of magic, it doesn't work if you don't believe in it. You cannot sit down with your friends rationally and tell the future through looking at playing cards, something like that. If you know, this is how the divination ritual works, it's all just a method of tapping into our subconscious understanding of the environment around us, then it doesn't work. That's why I believe it isn't just purely scientific. It requires belief, faith. And the thing is, the big question about, does the message come from the gods, or does it just come from some part of our soul or our subconscious ourselves? Does it come from the earthly plane, essentially? And I've come to realize that it doesn't really matter at this point. It doesn't really matter, because the gods are a part of this world just as much as our subconscious is. And I don't believe that, that it's too great of a difference or too extreme, a conflict to consider how the subconscious we have, which reflects the earth around us, differs in such a great way that how say the gods, the will of the gods would differ from the earth, because it doesn't. That you are made from the same sort of essence, the same sort of strands of fate that those gods are. And for that reason, analysis of the subconscious of the tribe and of the individual is just as worthwhile. It's just as valuable and worthwhile as some sort of transcendence, speaking to the beyond, speaking to the gods. Yeah. And say if you look at things like Ouija boards or Ouija boards or whatever, when people believe they're talking to ghosts and things like that, and the ghosts are moving their hands across the board, and the people don't realize that they are actually moving the things themselves. and the people are all very shocked when some word is spelled out. But of course, you think in words, and it's your brain who's controlling you, moving that thing, even if you're not doing it fully consciously, you're doing it subconsciously. Some sort of subconscious will or desire within the people ultimately has spelled out that message, spelled out what the board is saying. And even if never in a million years, through self-analysis and through rational thinking, would they ever come up with that idea or that message so it seems like it's coming from someone else, it's still coming from their subconscious. And ultimately, it's really not that big a difference from, say, if it was coming from the beyond, if it was coming from someone speaking to you. And so, that's why this practice of divination existed throughout all the time. In truth, yes, the Druids could tell the future. They could tell quite a lot about things which they wouldn't have been able to find out through mere science.